Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. Today I'm going to be interviewing Jonas Bordo, the founder and CEO of Dwellsy. He's going to be sharing with us how he built Dwellsy to become the #1 real estate rental marketplace in the United States. He's also going to be breaking down some amazing property management hacks and sharing with us some tactics on how landlords can get their properties rented out for free. If you have any questions, put them in the box down below. Make sure you roundhouse kick that like button so other cool people just like you can see this video. So if you like money and you like real estate, make sure you hit that subscribe button for future episodes, and we'll see you on the inside. Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs. We are live and appreciate you coming on Founders Club. I'm going to be talking about to the founder and CEO of Dwellsy, Jonas Bordo. Very excited to have you on and have a really great conversation. I know that we were just talking a little bit. You mentioned that you guys are the #1 rental listing platform in the United States. And just excited to hear about how you built the business, what you guys are looking for next, and kind of what the plans are, and talk all about that kind of stuff. So welcome on Founders Club.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, Oliver. Appreciate it.
Before we were talking about doing this interview together, I'd kind of heard about Dwellsy, it seems like a really cool project. After doing a lot more research before the show, just learning more about it, what you guys are doing, and it seems very rental advocate heavy, which is cool. But just kind of high level, why don't you just tell us what Dwellsy is for those that are unfamiliar?
Yeah, Dwellsy is really the first true rental marketplace in this country. We've never really had a real place where every renter and every landlord can come together, and every landlord can find their renters that they need for their properties, and vice versa on the renter side. They can find their next home. The reason it's never come together is a couple of reasons. One, it's always been a very classifieds oriented business. There's a lot of folks out there who sell classified ads, and landlords will know there's always somebody who wants to sell you a classified listing, right? And the renter experience as a result of that is there's just not very many places where they can get a comprehensive listing. There really is no place today short of Dwellsy. So we've been building for about 2 years, and we're at about 20% of the U.S. rental inventory on our platform and growing rapidly.
I mean, that's obviously huge. I'm curious to kind of maybe dive into the backstory a little bit. Like, where did this idea come from? And kind of give me a little bit of the why behind you just deciding to do this, and then we can go into a little bit more of the how.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the why really came from a couple of central insights that I had. I was working as a property manager running a portfolio of about 60,000 apartments for a company called Essex Property Trust, which is up and down the West Coast, including in your neck of the woods. So I spent some quality time down there in San Diego, touring our properties. And I had a couple of experiences that really led to this formation of Dwellsy. Number one was talking to renters and hearing their stories about their search and how brutal their search was. It had never been good, but with Craigslist really ceasing to be a safe and effective tool for them and for landlords, that became a much more difficult process for them. And they didn't find what they were looking for on any of the legacy classified sites. So that was a huge point of frustration for them. It seemed like an opportunity to serve them. Then, running a marketing engine that was responsible for renting 30,000 apartments a year. We had roughly 50% turnover across our portfolio, which is, fairly typical for that inventory cohort. Within that segment, I just found our marketing tools were not as effective as they'd once been. I mentioned Craigslist. It had kind of gone away. It went from nearly half of our leads down to almost zero over the course of a couple of years. The other tools that were out there were sending us leads, but they weren't great quality leads. And then we were trying to do, Google SEM and other tools like that. There's just a lot of money to spend on a really unpredictable process. So it seemed like a great opportunity to serve landlords as well as serving renters. It seemed like a classic market failure to go, for good or for ill. I went to business school, have training as an economist. So I always look for market failures. And this seemed like a classic market failure. And the third thing I was noticing, I was trying to run my portfolio according to data, and there just wasn't any good data available. Should we put new kitchens into this community? I don't know. Let's try it and see if it works. Did it work? I don't really know. We got some higher rents here. We didn't get them there. Was it timing? I don't know. Let's try some more kitchens and see if it works. Like, that kind of decision making just drives me bonkers, especially when there's the possibility of good data. And I tried to buy that data. Nobody could sell it to me. Nobody had it. And that was a realization that is another way we can help asset owners really make the most of their properties using great data, which has never been available before.
So I definitely want to dive into the data a little bit, because I think that's a really unique insight. I think that's something that's also very powerful. I want to circle back before we jump into that in what it says is your mission statement, and I want to know about a little bit more about that. But it says it's making it easier for renters to find hard to find rentals. Tell me a little bit more about what that means and how you guys do that.
Well, you think about your typical American renter, they have a unique set of goals that they're trying to accomplish. They might need to be in the right school district. They might need to have the right number of bedrooms. They might need to have a place that'll take their particular breed of dog. Each renter's search is quite unique. And, sure, there's some folks who just drive down the street, see a great multifamily community and looks like home, and they walk into the leasing office and it's done, right? That happens, but that's 5 or 10% of the market. The other 90% has something very specific that they're looking for, and it turns out to be really hard to find that. So as we, work to bring renters what they need, we've really focused on providing that hard to find inventory, because, to be honest, it's just not out there on any other site today. And we've got it, and we've got more of it every day. And, your audience probably has it too. All the folks listening to this, it's the kind of stuff that, guys and gals like us have across the country. A lot of owners who have 1, 2, 3, 5 units. That's the stuff that renters really want. That's the stuff that's hard to find. And we've built a platform that'll be able to bring that to them.
Right. It's very true, because generally those are just like little signs on the building in the neighborhood, and unless you happen to drive by, you're not going to see that sign. You're not going to catch the mom and pop building. And like you said, Craigslist was kind of the answer for a little bit, but then it got spammy and scammy and just a little weird. So that's very, very cool. I love this idea. It sounds like a massive project and a big undertaking. So why don't you tell me a little bit about like the beginning and kind of how you went about attacking this problem?
Decided to go after this, and honestly, I you don't know how to start this kind of thing unless you're a serial founder and technology developer, and that's not me. I've overseen large scale technology development and deployment activities, and I've started businesses inside other organizations, but I'd never done that from a starting point. So I kind of went back to first principles and figured, well, we got to build something. So I'm going to find somebody who thinks they can build it. And we got to incorporate and figure out how to do that. And, I just started working to put together partnerships and find people who could start building, and, made a ton of mistakes along the way, but also, a lot of things just happened. Like, we built a prototype initially, and then we signed up a huge amount of inventory. So we had outgrown the prototype before it was even finished. So we moved on to version 1, and we'd outgrown that before it was really ready to go live. So we started building version 2 almost as soon as we went live with version 1. And now we're, well into a mature consumer product that works really well. And, that's been quite a journey to get there. But none of it's rocket science. It's just, dealing with the next problem in front of you and trying to figure out how to do the thing that seems like the most important at the time. Whether it is or not, you sort of find out later. But that's been my approach so far.
I'm curious if you have a process of how you do that, and then kind of what the timeline was of when you started to where you are now.
Well, I'll start with the second one. That's a little easier. So from a timeline standpoint, we got started at the beginning of 2019. So about 2.5 years into building this at this point. Really, it took 9 months to get our first version up and running and in the market. And, it was pretty rough in the beginning, not a great product. So we've just been continually improving it since then. In terms of the process for deciding what's most important, I wish there was rocket science associated with it. I got to wake up every morning and, think about what kept me up the night before. And oftentimes that's the most important thing. So I've got to trust my instinct and say, this seems to be the thing to focus on. And one of the things about the whole startup experience is the number of people who are willing to help is extraordinary, and there's great guidance and insight out there from people who are willing to lend their time and their thinking. And they don't necessarily have the answer to you. You can't just do what they tell you to do. It doesn't work like that. But there's lots of folks who can point you in the direction of, here's what you need to do next, and here's what the gate looks like. You want to get funding? Okay, you got to kind of look like this. You want to, you want to get to the next stage in terms of, consumer acquisition. Okay, you kind of need something that looks like that. And, I've just tried to tap into experts along the way, and people who know a lot more about something than I do, and, leverage their skills and expertise as best I can.
What I'm hearing most is that you go off of your gut, which I like, and then you're seeking counsel from maybe experts, mentors, consultants, coaches, stuff like that.
Yeah, very much
to kind of help navigate the gut feeling.
Yeah. And that's, the thing about doing this, and you know what it's like to start a business. Like, nobody knows the whole picture except for those founders. Everybody's got a piece of it, and they've got great insights and great skills to bring. But nobody can really see the whole picture in the way, the person who created the thing can see it. And so, staying true to that and recognizing you have that unique insight is really valuable. But it's also, it's so tempting just to, everybody seems to have a straight path that you can go down, and there's no straight lines as you're building something like this. You got to figure it out along the way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's really good advice, very sound. I also want to go back to, I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing you had to raise a good, healthy amount of money to start this project. So I'm curious if you can give us any insights around that project or any tips around raising money, because we do have a lot of syndicators that listen to the show, and a lot of people that put together big real estate projects, and I'm sure you could share some insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I've been a part of teams. I've been in the real estate investment management world, and I've been a part of teams that have raised money on a huge scale for real estate investment, and that has a particular character to it, because you're fundamentally asking people to give you money for something where you're like nearly 100% sure they're going to get it back. If all goes well, they'll get a 6% yield or a 7% yield, or, if you've got a really interesting strategy, maybe a 9 or a 10 or a 12. And that's fabulous. And, raising money for that is never easy, but, there's a particular character to how that works. And that's what I'd had exposure to before. To go out and raise venture capital, which is what we've raised here, where the odds of any one venture succeeding are incredibly low. It's a very different conversation to say, I'm taking your money and I might not give it back to you, but I might give you 1,000 times what you give me. And that's a kind of conversation and risk profile that I'd never had exposure to coming out of the real estate business. So it was a lot of learning in the beginning, and frankly, using the skills that I have from the real estate space of just networking and just meeting people and figuring out who might know who I should be talking to, and kind of going from one person to the next. And met with several hundred people over the course of the past couple of years, and just always looking for advice and counsel on who the right folks are to chat with and who might be interested in this. And along the way, just met some amazing people, and refined the pitch. And you find people along the way who see the vision, are excited about what you're building, and helping make it easy for those folks, and knocking down barriers to them participating and investing wherever possible, and then just encouraging them, but always understanding that most people are not going to invest, and that's fine. You'll get them later on the next round after they see what you've done with other people's money in that first round.
Interesting. You say that at the end there, because I think the same experience holds true in real estate. I like, first of all, how you differentiated the profiles, right? Because I definitely agree with that. But just having the real estate process dialed in, syndication wise, bringing money in,
Mhm.
having a solid pitch, and having it kind of dialed in. Do you have any tips around that process? Like once you got someone to say, yes, I agree, what was the process like after that? Or one of these venture capital people to kind of talk about both angles.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a bunch of different phases and structures that work in different spaces. And one of my biggest frustrations and observed frustrations in real estate capital raising is getting to the first close, and having to get 10, 12, 15 different people and organizations to the same point at the same time, plus having a huge number of legal bills at that point. So, one of the things that I discovered early on in my capital raising journey is that there's a group called Y Combinator out here in Silicon Valley that's created a document that a lot of investors in Silicon Valley are comfortable with, called the SAFE, the Simple Agreement for Future Equity. And it allows you just to close any one investor as you go. And it's a pre-agreed document that's publicly available, and you don't need any lawyers involved. And honestly, it's not a perfect document. There's lots of folks who'd like it to be a little bit different in one way or another. But it is agreed to by a wide range of people, and you can close the money right then and there. So somebody says yes, I send them a safe via DocuSign, and then wiring instructions, and it's done within a couple of hours oftentimes. And that is,
great.
we need to create an equivalent like that for real estate syndication, because
Yeah.
that has been a fabulous engine just to improve velocity of capital raising, predictability of capital raising in the venture ecosystem. And, somebody puts something like that together, they should win a serious prize in the real estate space.
I mean, that 100%, that would be a game changer. It makes it so much easier that way. There's less customization. There's less, 50-page agreements and this and that. So I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah.
Also agree with your point earlier on when you're raising money, results make it easier, right? Like as soon as you give someone a win, then they're going to want to come back and they're going to want to give you more generally. And not only that, now they're going to tell their buddies because it's like, hey, this guy got me a win. You guys got to get in on this too. Then people have the FOMO kick in, and then all of a sudden raising money gets a lot easier. So I think results and track record help break those barriers too.
Yep.
So circling back to the Dwellsy platform, one thing I noticed is that a lot of things are free. It seems free for the users. It seems free for property managers to post.
Yep.
So what is the monetization plan for you guys? And then kind of, I want to transition into what your long-term vision is for the company.
Starting with what's free and why it's free. The reason for that is very simple. You look at some really great platforms that are out there that are charging landlords for classifieds. And in all cases, most landlords have chosen not to use those. The number one source of listings is yard signs and window signs right now. That's how most landlords advertise their properties. And that's because it's nearly free. And Craigslist was incredibly successful for a long time because it was free in most places. And where it wasn't free, it wasn't terribly successful. So we're trying to remove all barriers to listing with us, make it as easy as possible. So we've integrated with property management systems. We have no pricing associated with listings or leads or leases or anything like that. It's completely free for the landlord. We don't even have a contract that's necessary. There's nothing that needs to be signed. No lawyers need to get involved. Just list or don't list, up to you. So that's, what's free and why it's free. What we will charge for is a wide variety of services. So we're going to offer, we actually have a service that's launching today for renters, which gives them instant notification of new listings that match their saved search. So, back to your, what we were talking about earlier in terms of hard to find listings. If you're looking for that beachfront San Diego place that, comes available every 3 months and is gone in minutes, you're not going to find that if you're just logging into one of the listing services every evening. You need to get notification the second it becomes available, and we'll be the first to provide that. It's never been available before in the market. So that's just launched today for renters. For landlords, our first product is available. We have a fair housing compliance product. Everybody on this will know how complicated it is to be fair housing compliant. We're all trying to do the right thing, but the language can get really tricky. And we have an AI, machine learning tool that will help with that. And then, as the platform matures, there's going to be a wide variety of other premium products for renters and for landlords that help, generally speaking, the ecosystem work better. And then I talked earlier about data. There's going to be a ton of different things we're going to be able to do with this first of its kind data set. Everything from helping folks figure out pricing to decide what kind of upgrades to make and other things. So wide range of different monetization opportunities to, kind of talk about the business, but the core value creation for our business and what needs to work in order for everything to work is that we need to have that high velocity of rentals on the platform. Lots of available units, which we do today. We're, I think, roughly twice as big as any other platform in the space in terms of actual available units, and a great experience for renters. Thank you. Nobody's more surprised than me, to be honest. The uptake and support from the industry has been remarkable, and renters are finding us. We've grown our audience by 10 times so far this year, and continuing to grow at a rapid pace. 50 to 100% growth per month right now. So it feels like things are really happening and going in the right direction.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then what about long-term vision? Where do you see this 5-10 years down the road?
Yeah, so Dwellsy needs to be synonymous with renting in the United States. We're going to focus on renting forever because at the core, the rental business is really poorly served if you're also trying to do the for sale world, and that's one of the things we've seen over and over again in this industry. So we're staying focused on renting, and we really want to be that go-to renting brand for renters and for landlords, where if you think renting, you think Dwellsy.
Yeah, I like that. That. And it sounds like you're well on your way to getting there. So nice work on that.
Thank you. There's always more work to do all the time. But we've made some great progress so far.
And I think what you did on the back end too, working with property managers, letting them feed into the system for free, syndicating all their listings. Has that been a big part of your growth? And then how can, for the property managers that are listening, how can they plug into Dwellsy for that to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think one of the things that people have lost in the space is that, there's renters and there's landlords, and it's easy to think, well, I'm going to serve one or I'm going to serve the other. But the reality is you have to serve both in order for this to really work well. And we really see our business as joining with the landlords to serve our common client, the renter. So we started with the partnerships that were necessary to really build great relationships within the landlord community and have those folks get on board with what we're doing. So we got integrations in place very early on with many of the major property management software systems. So, your audience is probably familiar with AppFolio or Buildium, Yardi,
all them. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So, with most property management software systems, if you're on AppFolio, you're already on Dwellsy. Congratulations. If you're on something like Buildium or Entrata or Yardi, you just need to click the button in order to list with us. If you're not using property management software, we have a partnership with a company called Avail that will syndicate to us, as well as some other listing services. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible to list with us in a constructive way for the landlord. And then, coming back to that point about it being free, we've just tried to make it easy and free. And, incidentally, by providing a tremendous experience for the renter and really being the first and I think only site that actually serves the renter what they're looking for, which sounds insane, but I think we're the only organic search platform on the market. And the net result of that and a bunch of other things we do means that it's a much better quality lead. It's a real interested renter who wants to live in your place. So it's higher quality leads, which, that's good. And at a lower cost, at zero cost. Right. So, right. That's the cornerstone of what we're building, and what we think is going to be that central marketplace.
Do you guys pre-screen the tenants before they get placed, or do you leave that to the property management companies?
Yeah. So, one of the things that's really important about what we're doing is property managers are great at running their business, and they have very specific approaches about how they run their business. And you get three property managers together and you'll figure out 5 or 6 different ways to run properties. And we didn't want to get involved in that. We don't think we have a better approach to running property management organizations than property managers do. What we want to do is make sure, first that it's a real human with a, who is actually on the other side of that, which again, I can't believe I have to say this stuff, but that is distinctive in terms of some of the lead sources. So we are actually verifying that it's a person. We're making sure that it's what they're actually looking for. So that's a second tier of verification that others don't do. And then we're actually not, on Dwellsy, you cannot accidentally submit an inquiry. On all the other listing services, they've made it so easy to submit an inquiry that a lot of inquiries are submitted accidentally. I know from my past life experience, up to 50-60% of the leads that we would receive that we would pay for, when we reach out to those renters, they said, I've never even heard of you. Why are you reaching out to me? They, happen to have seen our listing, and that's it. And they had no memory of it. And, somehow that system decided that was a lead that we had to pay them for. Dwellsy doesn't do that. You actually have to go through a process of submitting an inquiry. And so we've erected a, small barrier to that just to make sure the renter is really serious. So those are some forms of verification that make sure that this is a serious inquiry. However, whether or not that person is appropriate for your property, whether they have enough income, whether they meet whatever specification you need them to meet, that's up to the property manager to determine and to get right for their property. We're not weighing in on that.
Yeah, makes sense. Might be an opportunity for you guys to monetize, though, if you maybe did credit checks for them and then pass them off as a credit approved lead. I don't know. That's for you guys to decide, I guess, but just throwing that out there.
Well, I can go. One of my favorite conversations is about how broken the application process is. There's lots of opportunities to make that better. Right now, applications. I looked at 75,000 applications that we'd received in my last role before I came over here, and did a statistical analysis. And there was actually no correlation with how that person turned out to be as a renter in our property. The applications had no predictive ability for, we could have just, taken a deposit on site and, had people come in and live at the property with no application, and we would have ended up in exactly the same place. Interesting. So I recognize that it, makes the landlord feel a little more comfortable to have one of the, old school application processes that are out there in place. But it doesn't really serve any purpose today. And so I think there's an opportunity to do that better. And, hopefully we'll be a part of creating that better path, working with our landlord partners to come up with a product that's really great for renters.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just a safe agreement. Who knows?
Who knows, right? Yeah, exactly. Need to come up with some sort of standard.
So very cool. I want to kind of transition just over a little bit more to the renter side of things. Obviously you guys are big rental advocates for people that are looking to rent properties, apartments, condos, etc. What would you say to the renters out there is the number one thing that they need to know when looking for their next home?
Yeah, I think the main thing I would say to them is meet the landlord and get to know the landlord, because that's going to be a big driver of how great a home that is. There are lots and lots of folks out there, and they can have a huge impact on your quality of life. You really are, in paying your rent, buying a relationship with that person, and that relationship requires underwriting an investment, if you will. You got to get to know them and make sure that this is a fit for you as well as for them. And you got to, invest in that relationship and, make sure that you're helping and that you make it easy for them to help you as well. So I think that's front and center. And the other thing I'd say to them is, as much as I look forward to the point where we have all the inventory on Dwellsy, we don't yet. So, the reality for the renter is they've got to look in a lot of different nooks and crannies, but they should look for what they want and make sure that they hold out to get what they want, and that they, there's always trade-offs we have to make. Not all of us can afford everything we want. There's lots of places you have to make a decision between whether they'll take your dog or whether, you go to another place that won't take your dog, and you try to figure out what you're going to do with that. There are tons of places out there, and they're often hard to find. So it's worth doing an exhaustive search and really finding something that's right for you.
Cool. That's I really like your point about meeting the landlord too. I think that's, such an easy way to resolve future disputes. Like if you guys know each other, first name basis, you've met, it makes it so much easier to ask for repairs. It makes it so much easier to, have them not raise the rent on you, all those types of things. So.
Yeah. No, know what you're getting into. Are you renting from a corporate landlord who's got a big organization and they've got, sophisticated software managing maintenance tickets and a big maintenance team and a 3-hour promise on maintenance? Or are you dealing with a one-off landlord who owns one property, lives 3 states away? And if you've got a plumbing issue, like, what are you going to do? Right. And knowing what you're getting into, setting your expectations and setting expectations for the landlord as you move in, and, being able to say, like, I don't have a clue what to do if something goes wrong in this property. And, helping the landlord understand that you're that kind of renter versus a renter who's like, I can fix most minor things. Let me know what you want me to do and not do. Some people enjoy that stuff and want to be able to deal with those things as they come up. Other people, I've seen lots of renters who want somebody else to change their light bulbs for them. And that's, the level of experience they have and what they're expecting. And, frankly, I ran a company where that was a service that we would provide if people wanted it. And that was part of what they were paying for. And great that they found us. But if they found the 3-state away landlord and expected to have their light bulbs changed, that, it wouldn't be a great relationship. So,
yeah, that doesn't sound like a good fit.
No, not at all.
And then what thoughts do you have on, as people want to transition from renting to buying, things that they should be thinking about, things that they should be looking out for?
Yeah. I think that the key about that transition point for people who are interested in owning is really about making sure that you are ready in every way. So, there's a couple of pluses and minuses about owning versus renting. Owning, obviously you can control your own destiny. You can really make the place your own, and you can get the potential upside in that ownership, but it takes a lot more time. And time that you might have had for other things while you were renting, you now have to invest in maintaining your asset. It generally costs more money. Most places across the country, the last numbers I saw is that owning is about 40% to 50% more expensive than renting for a resident owner. And there's a lot of unpredictability that comes with the expense side of that. And then the last thing is you better make sure you're going to be in your place for a really long time. So if you're in that place where you have some spare cash, where you have some spare time, and where you are really ready from a purchase standpoint, then that's great. But make sure you're there and that you're comfortable. One of the things that makes me really sad is that a lot of folks who buy their first place aren't quite ready, and then something happens, the roof fails or some other significant maintenance issue comes up, and all of a sudden they're underwater and trying to figure out how to survive that crisis, and that's not a good spot to be in. So really making sure you're ready for that step, and obviously, like most Americans, have made that step or will make that step at some point in their lives. But really making sure you're ready, and if you have to take all of your money and put it in a down payment to buy your home, then you're probably not quite ready. If you're, working 80 hours a week, trying to hustle to, that particular phase in your life, then you might want to think about a point where you have a little more time available. Because, home is a big, big investment, big, big asset, and be ready for it.
Yeah. And I like your point about making sure you're going to be there for a while. I think that's the biggest thing people misjudge when buying a house is just, if you're not going to be there for at least 5 years, the costs of just selling it and purchasing it and all of that, when you factor it all in, with the exception of markets like right now that we're in, where just everything's on fire and going crazy. But, when that slows down, the cost 6 to 8%, when you factor that in, unless you have a lot of equity, it might make sense, if you're only going to be in a place for 2 or 3 years, to just rent where you're at and see how that goes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, one of the things that I'm a huge advocate of is, rather than buying your own personal home, which obviously there's a lot of value to that. And I no judgment if people choose to do that, but buy a rental that you rent out to other people. If you're looking to get exposure to that asset class, you're gonna have a very different emotional relationship with it, which means you're gonna act a little more rationally than we all do about our own homes, which, it's a natural thing. It's your home. You want it to be beautiful and an expression of your personality. But if it's a rental, you're going to be much more pragmatic about it, and you'll actually get a better return rather than owning your own home. And then you can have the best of both worlds. You can be a landlord and have the benefits that come along with that, as well as having a landlord yourself. So that something comes up in your own home, it's somebody else's problem, not yours.
I like the idea of, no matter what, owning real estate. I think at the end of the day, that's the best, one of the best long-term options out there. I definitely also agree that you don't necessarily need to rent where you live, especially if you're in a career where you're advancing a lot. You know what I mean? And you can kind of like keep moving up every couple of years,
right?
Or you can really rent a much nicer house than you can buy, in terms of just comparing the monthly payment. So pros and cons, lots of things to weigh into everyone's personal situations. But all that being said, what are you investing in? What do you invest in these days?
Oh boy, I'm all in on Dwellsy. So that's number one. It's hard to be a startup founder and be too invested in other things. So I was invested in a few other things. I've been as well as being a renter for most of my life, I was also a small scale landlord. I owned a couple of units in Chicago, and decided to get out of those so that I could focus on this. As I'm sure many in your audience know, owning real estate is a labor intensive activity, and you got to have time if you're going to do it right. And I decided I didn't have that time. What I have been trying out lately is some angel investing, and started investing in some AngelList companies. So that's been an interesting learning experience for me. This platform called AngelList, which allows small scale investment in venture backed startups. So that's been a new experience for me. And other than that, I'm a huge advocate of real estate as an investment, and will get back in that market at some later date. But I'm more about the S&P 500 right now, and index funds there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're hyper focused on the business, which at the end of the day, for most entrepreneurs, is where we're going to make our most money. Is if you can put your money into a business, grow that business 100x, it's going to return way better than just about anything out there. But so it sounds like you're mixing it up. Real estate's in the portfolio, different things like that, but businesses are your core focus, which is awesome. Love that. So a couple of questions I like to wrap with. I like to kind of ask the guests and other entrepreneurs just the things that you use every day that make your life easier, make you more profitable, more efficient, tools, apps, softwares, anything like that. What do you recommend?
Oh boy. I think one of the things that makes my life easier that I take for granted at this point is, I've basically picked a technology ecosystem in which everything works together. And lots of lovers and haters for the Apple ecosystem, but having the phone, the iPad, the computer, the earphones, everything all talk and work together just makes things simpler. I use Nutshell for CRM. I'm a huge advocate of a CRM system. For anybody who's building a business, you just need to keep track of all the people you talk to. And I have talked to thousands of people over the last couple of years, and making sure I can keep track of them and stay in touch with them. Nutshell's been a great tool for me. So I'm
Cool.
happy to recommend that. I don't know, any other categories I should be thinking of?
Yeah, I was going to say, what about like process management or, in terms of managing your software production schedules, anything there?
Yeah, we've tried a couple of different tools for that. Haven't found anything that I'd really recommend at this point. We're on I think our third tool, and the team is kind of always sniping at the tool, and so I'm not it's hard for me to endorse.
No, that's fair.
We do have a range of different things that we use. GitHub is essential. I don't know how anybody functions without that in the software development world. But that's unique to that space versus some of the other tools that we've used along the way. We tried Asana, moved away from that. We tried Monday.com for project management, moved away from that. Nothing, it's hard to find that right fit for the team. Both are good tools, but just weren't right for
your
us.
organization now, is everyone virtual?
Yeah. It's, one of the gifts of the organization we were building before is that we were already pretty virtual before COVID hit. And we went full virtual, very quickly that first week of COVID. And, frankly, it's worked out well for us. I think everybody's been super productive. We have people who have spent quality time in, destinations that they want to be in. We have one team member who's been chasing the ski season all across the West Coast, which is, she's working like crazy and doing great work and, getting a ton of days on her snowboard. So I'm happy for her. That's worked out really, really well, that she hasn't had to be in a specific place and show up in an office every day. Hasn't impacted productivity at all. If anything, it's been a positive impact on productivity for us. Yeah. But I recognize each organization is unique and has unique needs. I've always been a very hands-off manager. I just find great people that I can trust, give them, interesting, hard things to do, and, they're amazing. And so, it's, that kind of approach and management style has worked well for a remote workforce.
Yeah, and I'll definitely agree with that. I think that was my biggest takeaway from the Steve Jobs book as well, was just hire people that are smarter than you at the job they do and just let them run.
Yeah. 100%.
Cool. Any tips around working remote?
Well, there's a bunch of things that I've developed. Getting some time away from work is really important to my psychology and my mental health. I've learned, and I've developed this habit of going for pre-dawn walks and just getting some time, listen to a podcast, to, just do a call to a friend or get some time away. That's been really important. And then I've tried to figure out, I still haven't, if anybody has any good suggestions on this, would love to hear it. Because I haven't figured out a good way to get a barrier between home and work. I used to actually love I had a 25-minute commute for the past few years, and it was perfect. It was no traffic, zero stress, just, covering 25 miles on the highway. And it was a real kind of mental, divide, I guess is the right word. Feels like the wrong word, but, a mental break in between where I could change gears. If anybody has a routine or an approach to doing that when you're, 10 feet away from, family and trying to change gears between work and family, very into that.
No, that's my challenge as well. So if anyone does have any tips on that, please put them in the box below so we can, we want to hear from you. Very cool. Well, the last question I have for you, I have 2 young boys at home, and I like to ask every guest that I talk to, just in general, what advice would you give kids on what they need to do to be successful in life?
It's such a great question, Oliver. I always think, success comes from being happy, and happy comes from knowing yourself. So really focus on understanding who you are, what drives you, and, what you need in order to make yourself happy, and then build a career that helps you achieve those things. It's not easy to know yourself. And it's been a long time as I've been trying to get to know myself and understand what I need. But, as I figured out more, it's helped me become a happier person. And it's also contributed to my success over the course of my career.
I love that. That's great advice. Couldn't agree more. And I think, to knowing yourself, right? Like the same thing, the question you just asked about, I'd like to have that buffer, right? That's knowing yourself, knowing you would like that buffer, and it's going to make you happier when you figure it out, or whatever it is, right? Your pre-dawn walk where you're listening to podcasts or books or just thinking about stuff. So I love that. That's great advice. For those of you out there, definitely send your rental clients to Dwellsy. It's going to be a huge marketplace. I think they're already the number one in the United States, but I see nothing but good things ahead for you guys. Wish you all the best. If you guys have any questions, put them in the box down below. We will definitely circle back with Jonas to answer any questions. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the loop for future episodes, and we'll see you on the next one.